How's it going? My name is Dylan.
My name's Leslie.
And this is Music and Mascara in the Car. Today, we're going to talk about focus and prioritizing and focus.
And some more focus?
And some more focus.
What does focus mean?
Not blurry. That's my photography brain coming out.
Okay.
We're going to talk about earbuds too.
That's good though, because it's still applicable. Like, you want to be clear on what you're doing and where you're headed.
Right. So I think that's where it came to me. So yesterday I was I've been thinking about this all week. So I don't know if what I've been thinking about all week led me to listening to a particular podcast yesterday, or if, I don't know, but it all just kind of happened together. Basically, I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast, and he was talking to the guy that started Keller Williams. I can't remember what his name is. Somebody Keller. Anyway, and he was talking about focusing on important things, and I was thinking, I'm like, this is what I've been trying to do all week. And we actually spent a fair amount of time the other day, like, figuring out a schedule. And yes, I learned what Trello was this week so that I could, like, make lists and be productive.
The funny thing about that to me is I remember you telling me that somebody wrote a book with Trello, and I don't even know if you realized at the time when you were telling me that I use Trello on a pretty daily basis.
Yeah, Kevin Hart.
So, like, in my mind, I was like, he wrote a book with Trello? And in your mind, you're just like, oh, must be this cool tool. Like, but you didn't really know what it was.
Right. So that was Kevin Hart on Joe Rogan's podcast. And he was talking about, because Joe Rogan was basically like, how do you work all the time? And basically, he has a driver, and he works out of a Sprinter van, and he's like, and I'm constantly writing, and he's like, I'm just writing, and he got out his cell phone, and he was like, these are book ideas, these are just thoughts, these are just random thoughts. And I'm like, I need to organize. When I saw that a few months ago, I was like, I need to organize my thoughts better, and I didn't know what that meant at the time. But as we get busier, we're trying to manage all this content for Music and Mascara podcast. I'm trying to, YouTube is getting crazy busier. We have a couple other projects in the works right now. And what's interesting about it is, I think everybody who is trying to be productive and has a business they're always like, well, I need to get stuff done today. Today's going to be a busy day. Mondays are crazy. But when you really look back on the day, it's possible that you don't know where the day went.
Right.
And that kept doing that to me. That kept happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm too busy for this. And it's very important to me that I don't want to let somebody down. Like, I don't want to forget an appointment. I don't want to forget a deadline. Like, I can't do that. Like, it gets busier and busier. And when it's by myself, I'm making my own YouTube video and uploading a YouTube video, or I'm creating a product to send out an order. That's one thing. But when you have many, many people dependent on you for different things, I just don't want to miss it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like you just recently probably started using your calendar better so that you wouldn't miss appointments. Yep. So I feel like you've been using your calendar better. And the Trello thing to me, to see how, like, you're like, oh, I could totally do this. And you just said, I hadn't heard you say that yet, I need a way to organize my thoughts. And something we've probably talked about for a really long time is, I always tell you, like, you have to get your thoughts out of your head. So, like, if that's going to give you a place to do that, I think it's going to be really powerful, because I think you have a lot more than you realize.
So where I feel it's important for me is I feel like
That is scary. Did you see that truck
I did
shift?
see that truck jump. I feel like it's difficult for me sometimes when I'm really busy and when I have a lot of obligations to stay inspired on the creative side of things. And this is probably a lot of people that have businesses or who are busy in their daily lives. So let's say, you know, you've got kids and a job and all the things, and you're doing all the things, but you have this little side hustle that you're trying to work on. It's difficult sometimes not to lose inspiration for that thing because it gets drowned by all the things you quote unquote have to do in the rest of your day. And then it just turns into, I don't have time for my side hustle. I don't have time for this.
So interesting you bring this up. I just read an article on time management, and what I'm hearing you say even, so it makes me think of examples like Steve Jobs. People, like, you have to eliminate what you make decisions on every day.
Yes.
Like,
The black
not
shirt, blue
eliminate.
jeans
You have
thing.
to reduce the amount of decisions because that's exhausting. So yeah. So think about it even in the sense of like a busy day. You're calling it inspiration, but it's just like you can't think anymore. So if you have a list of things, you can like, I don't know what I want to do. Let me go look at this list I have, and then you're like, oh yeah, I could totally knock this out really quick. You didn't have to think about it. There's no, you know, like.
Right.
You don't have to be that creative that you're saying, because there is a list that you have produced maybe in a different mindset. You know, I'm also reading that Win book, and it's talking about times to do like tasks and when to do more thoughtful process. So you can't do those things on demand either.
Right. There's certain times of the day where certain thought processes are not going to be productive.
So even
and
if
that's different for different people.
Yeah, if there's a down part of your day where you're more thoughtful, even having something like Trello where you could jot down ideas as they come up, if they come up, with no pressure.
Yes.
That could be cool.
So that's exactly what I'm using it for, is as things pop into my head, whether that's an idea for a YouTube video, an idea for this podcast, an idea for some other projects that I'm working on, and even like I jotted down some stuff like normal mundane things like website maintenance stuff. If I don't, especially when things are not a priority, so there's two things that I'm trying to do. One thing is I'm trying to prioritize things that I need to get done that are money-making endeavors, that are profit-building endeavors. And I'm also trying to prioritize things that don't necessarily need to get done right now, but also not forget about them and put them off and put them off and put them off. For example, I need to do a little bit of website maintenance. It's not a big deal. It needs to get done. But if I don't put it somewhere, it won't get done at all. And then a month will go by and it will not get done at all. Where it's a 15-minute little thing, but if I see it on a list and I fit it in somewhere, then it makes more sense. And I won't just put it off and procrastinate it. I won't procrastinate things that are on lists. That is how my brain works. If it's on a list, I won't. It might get pushed to the bottom of the list. But like for instance, in the old days when I would use a legal pad for everything, I wouldn't let myself rip a page out or flip the page over
Until it was done.
Until it was done, so it had to get done.
Interesting.
And I feel that that's the way I'm going to do this.
Okay.
I just think it's important because, especially if you're trying, you know, we talk about helping people think outside the box. There's the box that you have every day. There's like, you're going to get up, you're going to go to work, you're going to do the stuff, you're going to do the laundry, you're going to do the everything. But if there's that one thing that is outside the box, you probably do have time for it.
Yeah, so let's talk about time management.
Okay.
Because that's
where this comes in.
Yeah, you can have all of these ideas but you still have your day, right? Like that's what you're saying, the boxes. Like you have these things and they have to be done, but then where does all this other stuff fit in? So like time management is something we talked about, using a calendar earlier, but literally, and I really think it's cool. If she watches this, she'll know that we talked to her today. It was so weird to me to be talking about making sure your whole day is planned and scheduled when that's exactly what we just focused on this week.
Yeah, I want to talk to her more about that whole 24-hour thing.
Yeah.
About how, so we met someone today and we were discussing with her time management, and she was saying that one of her secrets is to make sure that she schedules out every hour of every day.
Which is what we just did this week.
We did. Even for downtime.
Right.
So that's not to say you're going to make yourself busy 24/7. That's just to say, and she mentioned, for example, from X time to X time every day, I take a nap.
Yep.
Like, but schedule it so that it gets done. If it's important to you, schedule it so that it gets done. But one thing I've found is I have more time than I thought I had.
Right.
When I schedule it.
Right.
I am busier than...
And it's more focused.
Yes, that's the big thing.
Yeah.
So if I schedule Wednesday evening from 7 to 8:30 to work on this particular project that I've got going right now, there's a couple things that happen for me. One is, obviously, it doesn't get pushed off. It is prioritized for that time, and I am ready for that time. But one additional benefit that I did not know was going to happen is knowing that tonight, or whatever night that is, that I am going to work on that particular project. I'm kind of like low-key in the back of my mind, sort of prepping my mind for that time period, so that when I get there, I already know, and I'm focused, and I'm like, 7 o'clock comes, or whatever that time is, and I'm like in it. Where if I say, before the end of the day today, I need to spend about an hour working on such and such, and it's not scheduled, then I might sit down for that time period and then like check my Facebook for a second, and then accidentally the phone rings, or my mind's just not in it. And when that same hour and a half period is over, I've not accomplished anything, or way less than I could have. If I schedule it, I'm ready, and it's just game on. Super, for me personally anyway, that's scheduling stuff has really helped me with that. Like the mental focus that came out of the time management, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I like that you even mentioned that it was less distractions, because I definitely believe, we've talked about, you and I have talked before, like multitasking is not a real thing. Right. So the ability to take the time and focus, and there's an end, right? So it's not like I need to get this huge project done. You're like, no, I'm going to sit down for an hour and I'm going to write. And then you're saying you kind of mentally pre-plan, and you're like, well, this is what I'm going to focus on today. And you just know, like, you're going to be done at 8:30. Like, so you can even, like, the phone goes off or you're getting messages or whatever, and you can, like,
I don't even think about them.
Like, I'll get to those when I'm done.
Yeah, and I think what's weird is, especially for me, is the beforehand, the mental preparation that accidentally kind of happens.
Gotcha.
If I'm gonna write about it, okay, so let's say on Monday I make a schedule, and on Wednesday I'm gonna be working on this particular project. Because I know I'm gonna be on that project in 2 days, there is some weird thing that's happening in the back of my head that is preparing me for that time. So that when I get there, I may already know what I'm going to write about. I may already have a general outline in my head, and then I sit down and I just do it. Where if it's a random happenstance that I'm going to be creative for a particular amount of time, I think songwriters, I think a lot of people, if they don't plan it, sometimes or if it doesn't happen correctly, then sometimes you'll sit down and you'll be like, I'm going to be productive about this one thing. And then your brain just shuts off. Like,
Right.
Then you're like, we've done that.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about on this podcast today? Well, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? Well, I don't know. But when your mind is mentally prepared for it, it just happens better and it's more organic. I don't know. And I also feel like, I know I'm doing most of the talking in this here episode, but this has been a big...
This was an eye-opening thing for you, though.
It's been a big deal.
I did work on... So again, I'm already using Trello. I already know how to be organized. You know, I'm a note taker. I mean, I get my thoughts out of my head.
Yeah, you're really good at it.
But sometimes that's where that stops for me. So my focus was obviously more of the scheduling. Like, I need to set aside time. This is what I need to get done. And I'm not even going to say that I've got that far yet. But this podcast, for example, I can see our schedule coming together for this.
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit in the last episode, like seeing these things, like putting things in place, being able to execute them. So seeing this come into play for me and start happening is a positive for me to get ready for my next project. You know, I needed this one solidified first, so it has still been helpful to me to have this.
The other thing I will say is you have to start
Right.
in order to
improve.
Yeah. Because if you say, well, I'm gonna schedule it, or I'm gonna do these things, and you don't do them, like this podcast. This is episode 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's finally, like you say, we're actually starting to finally figure out a little bit more of a format. We're starting to figure out a little bit more how we want it to look and feel, and the schedule for when it's going to happen.
Yeah, so I'm curious if anybody noticed. So the one thing we talked about, it wasn't that our content, we didn't shift any content. Like, this is still pretty organic and raw, and we want to talk. But we did discuss briefly, like, let's tell more of our side of the story. Instead of like feeling like we're telling somebody what to do.
Yes.
Let's share the journey to inspire you.
Yeah, this whole lack of concentration and needing to focus on stuff wasn't I'm telling you how you should do your thing. This was like a personal journey for me. I've literally had a very difficult time with this for a long time.
Yeah, this week has really been monumental for us.
Big time.
And just to share a little bit more of the story that we can't share yet, we basically took on another project that we didn't see coming, that we are both excited about, that fits into our bigger vision. So it was literally like, how are we going to pull this off, and where are we going to fit this in without feeling like it was a burden? But again, you mentioned it, you know, if you start planning out every hour of your day, then you realize you do have the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of scary, actually. And I mean, we've said it before. We've said it for years. And it was, again, confirming to hear it come out of somebody else's mouth today. Like, I don't know how she put it, but we used to tell people, I mean, if you have time to watch Netflix, you have time.
That's it. If you have a Netflix, that's what I always tell people. If you have a Netflix account, you have time.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of priority. But I also feel like, okay, and I've been thinking about this. I feel like one of the excuses people make, and one of the headspaces where they go to, is, but my mind is so burned out by the end of the day by doing all the things in the box.
Amen.
That I just don't have anything left to give to anything.
I mean, I tell you that a lot. I'm like, I'm tired.
I can't think anymore today.
Yeah, I feel like
and it does happen. It does happen. But I also feel like if you knew what your goal was,
for sure,
for that hour and a half, or whatever it was, you would view the setting aside of that time, the scheduling of that time, totally differently. And to me, it fuels the inspiration to a project, to your art, to your side hustle, far better to do it that way. Instead of defaulting to, I don't have the mental energy for it, and putting it off and never ever doing it, committing to focusing for a small incremental amount of time, and maybe it's only 15 minutes, maybe it's only 30 minutes. All of a sudden, you're excited about that time instead of feeling overwhelmed and burdened by it. Because when we got that call, we had that meeting earlier this week, and
Was that just this week?
that was just this week. That
Woo.
was Monday?
Maybe, yeah.
It was Monday. When we had that meeting this week and we were invited to be part of this project, my first thought was, oh my God, I cannot take on another thing. But this is so cool. I want to do it, but I can't take on another thing. And now, knowing that Wednesday or Thursday, whatever we picked, I don't remember now, from this time to this time is dedicated to that project. I'm like looking forward to that time. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, we don't have time to do anything else. You know? And what's fun is, and I know that this isn't for everybody, but all the things that we have that are in the box, our quote unquote real jobs, laundry, all that stuff, now feels like that's just what you do during this time. And I'm looking forward to all these creative things that we have on our schedule. Like, I'm stoked about Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. I'm stoked about Friday night at whatever time.
Yeah, no, that's a cool perspective.
And now all of a sudden, the rest of normal life isn't... I'm not saying I don't care about Monday mornings anymore. I never really did, but you know, all the mundane stuff is just a thing you do. It's not overwhelming anymore because I'm super excited about this other stuff. It's just a perspective change.
And you think scheduling is what helped that?
I do.
Interesting.
I do. It has completely changed mentally my mind towards creativity, even. I've told you hundreds of weeks. I mean, literally, I do not know what I'm going to do for tomorrow's YouTube video. I have no idea, and I do not feel like making one.
Right.
I mean, I've said that dozens of times. And now, it's like it's a challenge. It's like I'm challenged. I'm challenging myself. You know what I mean? Like,
it's mentally challenged. That's what I heard.
To accomplish a thing during a particular time, and then I just do it. It's awesome.
But what happens when it doesn't happen? Do you think
know.
that will happen, or do you have a list going for that too? Like,
well, so the Trello, going back to the Trello thing, being able to manage my thoughts better, and being able to document my thoughts, more importantly, will help that a lot.
Okay.
And yeah. Like the other day I showed you for that other project, I had a whole list. Remember the other day? Okay, this is an excellent example. As far as stunted creativity as a result of like being so busy and not being able to think about anything. And I told you the other day, I was like, on this new thing, I was like, I don't even know how to approach this. I was feeling very overwhelmed by it. And I was like, I don't even know how to approach this. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know, I want to be a part of it, but I don't even know where to start. And I thought to myself, I'm like, wait a minute. Let me just make a list of thoughts that I have about it. And then you look at it and you're like, you have like a year's worth of content right there just in the last 15 minutes of just writing random stuff down.
Right.
Boom. Now I'm stoked about it.
Yeah.
Like, to be able to manage those random thoughts. And I think most people who are like side hustling, even if you did, just document the little things. I mean, you're at work in the middle of another meeting and you have a random thought about something. Just write it down.
Yeah, because
Just
maybe
write
you
it
don't
down.
have the time to
Flush
that thought out. Like, can you come back to it? But you're going to forget. I mean, how often do we talk and we're like, oh, I was thinking about something yesterday and now I can't remember what it was, but I wanted to talk to you about it. I mean, that's really frustrating. But if you get that thought out of your head, then it's on a list and you can be like, oh, here it is. Can we talk about this? This was my idea. I mean, it's the same process people use with like documenting dreams. And I mean, you just have to write stuff down to make sense of it sometimes. I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense. We talked about that in the last episode.
Doesn't have to.
It might be a crazy idea. Write it down. Keep thinking about it.
Yep.
Add some bullet points after it. Like, it starts happening and coming together.
Yeah, because thoughts and ideas evolve. But if you lose them, then they're of no value to anybody. Like, if you just forget them, you know.
No, I'm trying to do better about that. Even when we worked the other night, you know, I felt like I had this like left brain idea and I was really struggling to pull it together, but I was trying to get my thoughts together enough to share it with you so that you could see the direction, and then you actually did help me bring that together. So I mean, I don't know how long it would have taken me to do that on my own, but I feel like it did happen because I had a better idea of what my idea was that I could constructively talk about.
Yep.
But that wouldn't have happened if I didn't get it out of my head. I mean, that idea has been in my head for weeks now. And I was like, no, I need to write this down. Like, I want to figure this part out. If only for myself at this point, but sometimes we have this illogical order of things that need to transpire in our head, and that's okay too.
It makes you wonder how many good ideas have never happened.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't let that happen to you. You know, like, how many things have people thought of, and because they're like, nah, I'll never have time, or just even just let it go in one ear and out the other, and it just...
Don't let anybody else kill your idea either. You know, like, because even, I mean, we talk about things, your ideas don't make sense to me sometimes, my ideas don't make sense to you.
No.
That doesn't make them bad ideas. We don't think the same. So, like, I can't see it coming together yet. Show me.
No.
You know?
Yeah. So, takeaways. Find a tool
Yeah.
to document crazy ideas. I know we talked about a whiteboard last week, but this Trello thing seems... We're not sponsored, by the way, by anything. We're just... This is stuff we found and are using.
And it's free.
It's free. So document your ideas for sure.
Yeah. Some kind of organization for sure.
And schedule... Sit down, and even if you aren't going to make changes to your current schedule, document every hour. Just start with one day. Just take a day, like Monday to Friday. Take whatever it is, Thursday, doesn't matter, and document from a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
Everything that you do
wake
with your
up,
time.
you go to work. You know, whether that's driving, your work hours, your drive home, dinner time, your watch TV. Like, yeah, document all those things.
And then figure out where you can spend whatever amount of time there is
Yeah.
to work on that crazy idea that you documented.
Right.
That's how it
Well,
starts.
and taking the time to start documenting. I mean, if you have time to watch TV, if you have Netflix, if you're sitting at a bar, like, you have time if you're doing all of these things. This is part of the reason. So it's funny, maybe we started doing this before we even realized, because part of the reason we started doing a podcast in the car is because we're in the car. How can we take advantage of this time?
Making this time useful, yes.
So that is something that we figured out also, is a way we wanted to be more productive in the car. Because obviously somebody's always driving. Like, the other person can be productive, but how can we be productive together?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we figured out. So, hey, maybe we were doing this before we even knew we were doing it.
Nah, I mean, yeah, except that this week I feel like internally, like, I found next level.
Yeah, well, good.
Definitely
because
found
we
next level.
we're gonna have to be smart about our
We are gonna
time.
have to be smart. And here it is, a Saturday afternoon, and we're working, but it's time that we have. It doesn't feel like work though.
Yeah, and what have we done? We like met a cool person and
Networked for some other ideas.
record a
yep.
podcast. We're gonna get some work time in. We did some errands in the midst of that. Like, it
Went
feels
to the
good.
guitar, but we still went to the guitar store.
Oh, you
We
had
still-
work too.
I
That
had-
was yeah.
Went to the guitar store. That was work, but it was still fun because we went to the guitar store. We hung out with family this morning. We were able to, see our nieces. We're all able to do all the normal things, but it's just a matter of understanding where the time was going.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you
yeah.
and you
Awareness
even
is
said
key.
It.
Yeah.
And we went to lunch together with no work related to it, just me and you together. But the whole thing started with you texting me and saying you wanted to go to lunch, and we got in the car and you're like, I didn't want my afternoon. You realizing that if you don't do something meaningful with this time, that it's just going to get wasted.
Yeah.
And boom, we had an amazing day resulting from that.
And we're only like 4 hours in
Yeah,
to when we started.
we still have a long time to go.
I like it.
Well, let's go have coffee. We didn't talk about earbuds. I guess we'll leave that for... there's a video coming out on YouTube. I have been, speaking of working and trying to be productive, in coffee shops and stuff, because of using Wi-Fi, and we're trying to learn how to make all this stuff a lot more mobile. I wanted a pair of earbuds that I could use that sounded good so that I could mix audio with them and do all this stuff. I've gone through 3 pairs of expensive earbuds, and I've finally, I think, gotten to wear a pair that I like. So, hopefully by the time this podcast comes out on Monday, or close to it anyway, that video will be out. 3 different kinds of earbuds, and I think I finally settled on a pair. So it's been a journey.
Cool. We'll add a link to the blog
Yeah.
whenever that happens,
Yep.
before or after.
And we'll put links in the description of this video and in the blog post, probably, to some of these utilities and apps that we're using, and a couple of the other ideas. I mean, you're going to read all about it, but a couple of the other ideas that we're using to stay straight.
Stay straight. Are you struggling to stay straight?
I want coffee right now. I know that.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks for hanging out. My name is Dylan.
Leslie.
There's music and mascara in the car.